Hey drawing friends, today we're drawing the pansy, which is one of the coolest flowers ever. A lot of people see little faces on them, so if you see a bunch of them in a garden, you can just pretend that this whole little group of flowers are like singing in a choir and cheering you on for your day. The other fun thing about pansies is that in some areas they can grow throughout the winter. So yeah, that makes them even cooler, no pun intended. Okay, so as usual, all of the supplies are listed below, and you can get a PDF that goes along with this class that you can copy, and it kind of breaks down the steps visually for you. Also, we are posting our drawings to the Instagram hashtag Watts Floral Series. So you should totally go on there and check out other people's drawings and put your own up there if you'd like. All right, let's get started drawing the pansy. Okay, so I have some reference that I licensed from Shutterstock, and I just want to show you how I sort of sketch out a pansy before we get into the inking part. But look at all the different patterns that you can see on pansies. It's so cool. And look, oh my goodness, it's so cute. And some of them kind of have ruffled edges, and some of them have kind of smooth edges. I like to draw them with a slight ruffle in them just to kind of give it a little interest. And to me, this is the quintessential piece of a pansy, is that cute little, these kind of butterfly shaped patterns that you see on them. And this is oftentimes when people see a little face. So you've got this kind of shape, kind of like a butterfly. So when I draw a pansy, I typically draw kind of an oval shape to kind of contain my petals within. Now, some of these are more of a circle shape, right? But I tend to draw an oval shape because they're usually a little bit taller than they are wide. So I'll draw an oval, right? And then this bottom, go ahead and make your center mark. And then this bottom petal is a lot like a manatee tail. And then you've got two more petals on the sides. And then oftentimes these two back here are hiding. So you can kind of think of those as like petals that are always in the back. You usually see these and then just hints of these two petals on a pansy. Now sometimes you'll have one that's largely overlapping the other back there. But oftentimes, you'll just see the two of them kind of like this. And the most important part to me when drawing a pansy is, yes, of course, the 5 petals, but you want to make sure that when you do this pattern, that when you go to do the hatching to kind of fill it in, that you have a consistent shape that you're filling in so that it doesn't become a dark blob. Because they kind of have this butterfly shape, right? So what I do is I take, my original sketch, and then I'll draw what looks like butterfly wings, right? And then here you'll do the bottom 2 butterfly wings kind of connected. Sometimes you'll feel like this bottom petal is actually split in 2 because of how much this is pronounced. And I actually made the mistake of drawing this bottom petal as 2 petals before, but it's 1 petal, and this pattern is kind of shaped like this, so that if you fill this in, it creates this kind of butterfly cookie cut kind of shape, right? And sometimes sometimes they'll break the rules a little bit, like here, and then this one's a little less pronounced, but for the most part it's often that kind of shape. And then you've got some pansies that it'll be more like lines that indicate that shape, like these two. So you can go either way, but to me this is this is what you usually think of when you think of a little pansy. Okay, And for the stem, I kind of make like an S curve. And the leaves on pansies, they kind of change with different varieties, but this leaf is the one that I ended up going with. And so the shape of it is kind of like this and very rounded. So what I do is I draw, you know, a leaf shape, and then I give it its center line. And then I go in and add those little ridges like that. And if you wanted to do one from the side view, you would draw that center line and then the side of it, and then you would add those ridges. And then you can add a layer of them behind as well if you're kind of looking at it from slightly above. So okay. And a lot of times with pansies, you'll see the leaves mostly clustered at the bottom, and then the flower kind of comes up by itself singing la. Oh, you can't see that, but you know, here's the pansy, and then all of its leaves are usually down here. Okay, so that is how I draw pansy. Okay. All right, so here's the sketch that I have already prepared for the pansy. And as you know, with these videos, I usually draw it in a consistent line weight pen. I'm using the Tombow Mono Drawing Pen in size 8. And then I go back in and add a thickness to some areas to give it a little more interest. And what's nice about this technique is it gives you that brush pen effect without having to have that hand control that you get over time with a brush pen. You can kind of, you know, faux add it in for now if you're still in the beginning stages of drawing, or if you only have one pen with you, you know? All right. Okay, so I'm just going to zoom in a little bit so you can see how I'm doing this. But again, you can see how I have my butterfly shape sketched in so that when I go to make the hatch marks, it stays consistent in there. So first, I start with my bottom petal, and I give it a little bit of a ruffle. And I start with this one because it's the one that's in the front usually. And then I do my side petals. And then I'll go in and add those top 2 petals. And those are behind these 2 petals most of the time whenever you see them on pansies. Now, when I go to ink the pattern, I will kind of make a scrubbing motion that follows that path. The other way you can do it is to do individual lines and just make sure that the bottom of those lines all kind of point towards the center, so they kind of fan out instead of all going in the same direction, because you want it to follow the shape and the flow of the petal that it's being drawn on. Okay, and then from here I would just keep filling that in until it gets darker and darker, but it's nice to start off with at least the directional lines that you want the lines to go in, and then start filling those in darker and darker as you go. All right, and moving to the other flower. Just to show you again how I start with the bottom petal. And then I do the two sides. And you can think of this as kind of like a snow angel. So you've got your wings and then the dressed shape that your legs would make if you kind of flapped around in the snow for a little bit. Then go ahead and add in those top two petals. And again, when you do the darker pattern, you want to make sure that it's fanning out and following the path of that petal being, you know, growing from the center point. So your lines will cascade out of that center point. Now I went out of my sketch a little bit there, but okay, so from here I'm going to ink the stem. Now, if one of the things that I always have to keep in mind is if I'm drawing over here after just inking something over here, I want to make sure that that's dry so I don't rub my hand through it. And I think that goes for left or right-handed people. You just kind of want to keep in mind, like, oh, am I going to scrub over something I just inked? All right, and oop, little mess up right there. It's fine. Don't even worry about it. All right, and even though oftentimes you see all the petals at the bottom of the pansy, sometimes they do come up here, so I put them up there just to give it a little bit of interest. And I still kind of give it that long neck that it has. I'm going to add, this was an extra leaf, and I'm going to actually add one more right here just for the composition's balance. Okay. All right, and then when you have the side view of leaves like this, you can always go back in and add a little bit of that, you know, the other side of the leaf poking around. Okay, so there's my pansy drawing, and now you'll see me kind of add some thickness to some of the areas just to create a little more interest. And so I'm going to speed that part of the video up. right, there you have it. There is my pansy drawing. And I also have a few versions where I dropped in color afterwards just to show you some ideas to get your, your brain juices going. But that's why I use waterproof ink, is so that I can drop some wet media in afterwards. So I've got this where I added Tombow dual brush pen and just kind of made it where I fanned colors in the same way that I did the darker area in the center. I did that with the colors towards the edges, and I left a white space here and then in the center. And then you have these. This is one of the examples where I said I accidentally drew the bottom petal into 2 petals instead of 1, but the color's really fun. And this is another thing that you can do, like take the stem out of any of your flowers and just put the leaves right behind them, and that'll create more of a decorative cluster of flowers. And then with this one, yes, I messed up on this one. However, Photoshop will save the day. But this one I dropped ink in and did the color that way, and then accidentally dropped ink here, and then I tried to splatter all over it to kind of create a splatter effect. It didn't work out. I'm going to Photoshop this one and see what happens. But anyway, nothing's perfect, Alright, so I hope you enjoyed this pansy tutorial. I had so much fun teaching you how I draw them. And if you liked it, then go ahead and shoot me a thumbs up and a subscribe. I'd be so thankful. I've got so many more videos coming your way, and I can't wait to see where this channel takes me. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed this class, and you have a great day.